Hey guys, what's going on? This is Dr. Matt Wenning at winningstrength.com. And before we get into today's video, make sure you like and subscribe, and also make sure you guys comment when you guys watch this stuff to help the algorithm with the channel. So let's get to the topic. Today's topic is the top things you're going to need in a gym. Now, this might be a garage gym. This might be a gym that you're looking to join as a member. It could be a lot of different factors, but I would say those are the two big ones. So the first thing that you're going to need is a really good set of dumbbells and kettlebells. I preferably would not work out in a facility that didn't have at least up to 150-pound dumbbells, and also need a pretty good amount of kettlebells with lighter ones for doing things like upside down kettlebell presses, kettlebell swings, kettlebell regular bench presses. You could do snatches, cleans. There's a lot of different exercises you can do with kettlebells that are not necessarily, you can't do with dumbbells, but they don't work as well. So a great gym is going to have a vast array of dumbbells and kettlebells. So that's one big thing you want to look for. The next thing is to have a good cable crossover with a heavy stack, usually somewhere between 150 and 200 pounds per stack. And you want a cable crossover so that you can do things like tricep pushdowns, face pulls, cross body tricep extensions. The advantage to having a cable machine is that the weight stays constant throughout the entire range of motion, because as you move the cable, the stack moves up and down. When you have a dumbbell, you have different degrees of pressure based on the fact of the way the gravity pulls down on the dumbbell. So on a bicep curl, the hardest part is at 90 degrees or 45 degrees. And then the easier part's at the top and right at the very bottom, because it's not at its maximal weight due to the leverage of the joint. The next thing that you're going to need, and it gets a little bit more specific, is you're going to need a squat rack. Now, a squat rack with safety pins is optimal, preferably with two separate J hooks in order to do half-field squats if you're either a beginner learning technique or you're ultra advanced and need more loading and more technical work with heavier implements. This was kind of created and utilized by Dr. Fred Hatfield, which was one of the best squatters of all time with a 1,014 squat at 242 in the early 80s. So a rack is super important. There's some other things that are important with a rack as well. One, being able to do light and method bench presses, which a lot of people haven't seen before. You're also able to do band presses from the bottom, and you're also able to safely set up chains, and for some people, it's important to have weight storage in order for you to save room in a garage gym. The next few pieces are a little bit more specific, but not as specific as you may think because of the normal injuries that people have. The first one's going to be a 45-degree back extension. 45-degree back extensions are insanely important because it allows you to do a deadlift-style RDL without the vertical spinal compression. So it's a safer, more effective exercise that, in my opinion, you can do higher volume in than normal deadlifts, which has a high transfer to deadlifts as well. The next one is going to be a reverse hyper. The reverse hyper machine was created overseas in Europe, probably in the late 50s, early 60s, and then was U.S. patented by Louis Simmons around 1992 or 95. This machine is super important for getting the lower back insanely strong, and again, without doing a lot of vertebral spinal compression. It allows you to have a very strong posterior chain without the mileage of squatting and deadlifting that can occur with either one, improper form, or two, lot of years of mileage. The next big machine that you're going to need is some form of a belt squat machine. The belt squat machine is very important to allow high levels of squatting volume and intensity with minimal to no spinal compression. Now, depending on what your technique looks like on the squat will be heavily dependent on which muscle fibers you recruit. But what we find is that as we sit back and maintain a vertical shin, we start to utilize glutes and hamstrings just as much as we do quadriceps, which creates a more equal balance when we're trying to squat ultra heavy weights. So the belt squat machine is something that's not only for beginners, it's also for intermediate and advanced people to allow higher levels of volume with less mileage. The next big thing that I think is super important is a glute ham raise. A glute ham raise is an excellent machine that requires your hamstrings and glutes to be insanely strong. And from my personal experience over the last 25 years of training firemen and special forces, the guys that struggle to do at least 5 or 6 glute ham raises with the machine set up correctly oftentimes are the ones that have lower back and knee issues. Why? Because their hamstrings are not as developed and their glutes aren't as firing nearly as well as they should. Therefore, most of the pressure is going to the knee and then transferring to the lower back. So strong glutes and strong hamstrings save the lower back and also help to protect the knee. So these are just a handful of things that I think are important. Some other things that I think are just as important, but maybe not as necessary if you're on a budget, is bands and chains and specialty bars. So bands help you to increase eccentric speed. They also teach you to control and build your central nervous system, Golgi tendons, and muscle spindles up to a higher level, allowing you to lift more weights. Chains are a little bit more of a stability and coordination aspect, but still have accommodative resistance, meaning that they're heavier at the top where you're the strongest, and they're lighter at the bottom where you're the weakest, and create an accelerative property as you're rising through the lift. Very similar to bands. Specialty bars are ultra important to make sure that you're not overusing the exact same exercise all the time. So for instance, when I squatted the all-time world record raw in powerlifting in both 2014 and 2016, in each of those 12-week cycles to get ready for those competitions, I only used a straight bar 3 times. One time to do around 80%, one time to do around 90%, and one time to do around 96%. Notice that I did not say 100%. What I had found is that as I got stronger with the safety bar, that my body's ability to strain with the straight bar was improved. Now, everybody will be a little bit different, but for me, being 6'1", keeping my chest upright was the hardest part of the squat, and the safety bar ensured that that training methodology and process was being thought of at 100% all of the time. There were other bars that I rotated that we won't get into in this video, but the point being, guys, is that you're eventually going to need more tools in your toolbox. I always like to use car analogies, and many people like to want to get strong, but if we look at it like building a car, you can only go so far with a screwdriver and a hammer. So this is Dr. Matt Wenning at wenningstrength.com. I hope this video was very informative for you. Please get the word out on this channel, like, subscribe, and tell me what you think is most important in the gym. Talk to you guys later.